Beginning cut in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everybody. This is your man Will the Thrill here, hosting the View from Valhalla SPL Predictions edition. Today we'll be going over the European Smite Pro League. So last time we went over North America, and we talked a lot about where I think teams will place, especially relative to their schedule. For example, can some of the middling to lower end teams really get going early off of an easy schedule potentially, and then find their identity and roll? Because for all we know, there is another sleeper team like Rival waiting to pop off right now. So EU is a very complex region with a lot of different pick strategies, with a lot of different, how shall I say, because pick strategies and draft strategies are one and the same. I think the word I'm looking for here is they are willing to play the game differently if the opportunity presents itself and they have a chance to grind out a win. EU players grind. And so I think there's a little bit more complexity and parity in the European Smite Pro League right now as opposed to North America, where I feel like there is some sort of lateral mobility between the middling and lower end teams. They could steal a space or two here or there. I think there is honestly a chance in EU for one team to come out with a new strategy and just completely run the table. I think it's not likely, but I feel like if any team's going to do it, it's going to be a European team. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start talking about the rosters. So we're going to go over some of this first. Hopefully y'all can see this well at home. So first off, the Poppies, since they're the first team in the bottom right corner, as you can see here. So Icreed, Dalo, Ohoboom, Warchi, and Draco Marino. This is the same roster that's been around for quite some time. I think since right after... I want to say it's been the same way since the start of the season. So they rolled in relegations. They did not really look challenged by anybody, even by Optimus Gang, the other qualifying team from relegations. I think the Poppies have the potential to place as high as 4th right now. I really do. It's honestly a wait-and-see situation with them, though. Not to be, boring and safe, but the Poppies, they could be as low as 8th or as high as 4th, in my opinion. I'll give a definitive answer once we get to placement, but they have a lot of potential. Dalo, to me, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, by the way, Dalo, but he probably strikes me as the best player on this team. Warchi is weird and will do unconventional picks. He really, really likes his Susanoo in that ADC role. He ran it during relegations, but I think that if he plays that way, that will actually be that will drag the Poppies down. There is one player in the entirety of the SPL, in the entirety of the Challenger Cup, who I believe can pull out wins the way that Benny Q can with strange ADCs, and he's the man. Straight up. So Team Rival, we all know him, we all love him at this point. Deathwalker made a name for himself playing Bologna and showing that she is back in the meta, and he's pretty much dictated the solo meta for the past month and a half, 2 months now, it seems like. He's really set the rules there. Ice Ice Baby, up-and-coming jungler. He's been better every single appearance he's made. Wolfie, he's been really, really consistent for this team. Just one of the best players since they broke into the Smite Pro League back in Season 3 fall. Vote, come a long way, because honestly, during Season 3, I thought he was the weakest player on this team, and it wasn't close, but he's improved a ton, and he can go toe-to-toe with anybody if his team needs him to, which is important because as a side laner, sometimes when your team needs to lean on you, you have to be able to answer the call. Bad ADCs in the SPL cannot answer that call. They can't go toe-to-toe with their opponents when their team needs a pick-me-up. Vote and Deathwalker can, so that's a really strong point to Rival. Colossus, of course, he's the Fafnir main. He absolutely kills it on that god, but he's a very, very intelligent player. He always picks gods that he's comfortable with, but he always tries to make sure that it synergizes well with his team's draft. I feel like Colossus' god pool does influence the way Rival wants to pick, but the thing is that Colossus' god pool pretty much consists of who's really strong right now, and then he latches on to one particularly good god that he likes, like Fafnir in this case. And so, while I feel like Rival does tend to be a very support-centric team when it comes to their draft, I think Colossus, because he just plays what's really good, it kind of works seamlessly. It works very well. Team Dignitas, aka Variety's new team, aka the team that Variety made when he left Obey Alliance. You guys know the deal. They were the runners-up at Smite Masters, so second best team in the world, according to Last Land. Now, Variety, Cuvo, Fred, Zeros, Arkle, Trix Tank, it's a very, very, very strong roster. Variety, I think he's not the best solo laner in EU. I think you got to put Deathwalker, you got to put Maniac above him, and I feel like there are other guys who on a good day can give him competition in Dimmy and Ducky. I feel like both of those guys can deal with him pretty nicely. But generally speaking, I think Variety beats Dimmy and Ducky. I gotta give it to Deathwalker and Maniac right now. They're the two best solo laners probably in the world at the moment. Cuvo Fred, excellent jungler. He's been excellent since Season 3. Season 2, he was still pretty good. Of course, that Paradigm team was one of the few teams that actually beat Epsilon in a set way back when Energy was known as Epsilon. Zeros, very, very strong mid. I think actually he could be the strongest mid next to Pretty Prime in all of EU just because his willingness to push the meta to its logical limits is quite impressive, actually. I mean, he basically brought Soul back into the meta in an almost Socratian way where he's like, why not? You know, he's picking the god and people are like, but we don't pick Soul. And he's like, but you can. You know, so it's very, very funny how that pans out. Arkle, proven to be one of the best mechanical ADCs in the SPL since Season 3 when he was a rookie, and Trix Tank again, great mechanical player. So everybody on this team has had their own clips in the highlight reel. Every single one of these players is liable to pop off. Team Dignitas is going to be really, really good, and I do expect them to be around where they were at last split. The only thing that I can see happening with Team Dignitas is that Energy or Rival just goes completely crazy and leaps them as second place, and then Dignitas is like third. I mean, the top 4 is probably Obey, Energy, Rival, Dig right now, and I think the LAN results prove that. But logically speaking, it could be any of these teams in any order, but probably Obey first, just for the record. Now, Optimus Gang. Hate to say it, but I think I see these guys as the 8th seed, if only because I don't like Death Panther. I think he is not a very good player. Granted, I think because he's been around the cusp of making the SPL for a while, I'm willing to believe that he's improving, and he is potentially a more effective player starting with this split. I think that there's a chance he could turn out to be a fine mid. So I'm not going to write him off just yet, but his track record hasn't been good. CB, I mean, I know the Poppies trash-talked him, and for a little while there, I kind of believed it. But honestly, looking at him in relegations, I think I've got to give him some respect. CB's pretty decent. He's also team captain. So his presence on Optimus Gang, I have to assume is a positive. Johnny, it looks like Zoni, but apparently you pronounce this Johnny. Johnny is the star player of Optimus Gang, and probably it's been a long time coming for him as far as making the SPL. I think he deserved to be here a long time ago. I've seen him produce very, very heavily in the Challenger Cup in the past, and he's just crushed his opponents at lower levels of Smite up until now. So he, without a doubt, if we're talking about any one player on Optimus Gang who just deserves to be here, it's Johnny more than anybody. He's absolutely insane. Great mechanical player, and I think he fits right in with the style of junglers we're now seeing in EU because Ice Ice Baby, Dalo, Cuvo Fred adapting, Captain Twig, Nika, well, maybe not Nika, we haven't seen him play too much jungle, but everybody except for Nika, basically. Nika, sorry, your track record is just not extensive in your role. Nika's a known solo laner, for those of you who don't know. But anyway, everybody else plays a really, really fast-paced style of jungle, and the funny thing is that EU has so many good junglers that teams build themselves around that Johnny just fits right in. His style is perfect. I mean, he's kind of like the quarterback you see coming out of college where you just know he's going to make it into the NFL. Like, he's got all the good mechanics, all the good talents. Everything you want to see out of a pro jungler, Johnny's got, so huge props to this guy. Look out for him. He's going to come up big, I believe. And then Caspacify and Fusify are interesting wildcards to me because while I saw them play in relegations and they did just fine, let's see. Fusify is the support. I think he showed that he's probably one of the top 2 players on this team along with Johnny. His mechanics on support gods were pretty good. But honestly, I don't know too much about Kispancify and Fusify just because they only play online. I have not seen them at a LAN. And the funny thing is, when you see guys play at a LAN, I feel like it's a much more telling story about what exactly drives these guys, what makes them tick, and how well they play in the playoffs, basically. Because that's really what Smite LANs are. Those are the playoffs. You put up or you go home. You win or that's it. So I'm really curious to see how these guys perform in the SPL because now they're playing much more meaningful games. Pressure's on them. And again, everybody on this team except for Death Panther is a rookie. And actually, now that I think about it, that is probably the one positive Death Panther has, is that he is not a rookie. So that's very good. Anyway, on to the Golden Boys, Obey Alliance, SWC runner-up last season, this year. And currently the Smite Masters champions, so as of last LAN, best team in the world, Obey Alliance. You've got Maniac, Captain Twig, Pretty Prime, Ataraxia, Emilzy, all top players in their respective role. Quite probably the closest thing Smite has ever had to having a truly perfect team where not one player in their role was bad on an SPL level. Even more so than Energy. I mean, Maniac has been crazy since he came back. Captain Twig has been so consistent. I mean, there are some doubts in my mind last season when they were talking about, can Captain Twig make it back to his third Worlds and be the only EU player to do it? I mean, he showed exactly why he belongs in Worlds, why he's been there every year with his play at the regional LAN and then going forward into the World Championship. Captain Twig is an insane jungler. He likes to invent his own meta sometimes and play his own picks. Again, Nikke jungle during the Smite World Championships, I mean, he pretty much pioneered that, invented it. I know people were throwing around the idea of Nike jungle before that, but he made it work, and he made it happen real nicely. Pretty Prime, best mid in the world, hands down, no question about it. Zeros, really, really good. Lobster, really, really good. Yaman, really, really good. I mean, Yaman and Lobster are arguably MVPs for their teams. But Pretty Prime, I mean, nobody plays the mid role like he does. He's the adapting of his role where it's just like he is preeminent, he's the best, and he'll take picks that other people can't perform nearly as well on and just make them work. Nox being one of the big examples of that. I say this a lot, you don't see Nox doing a lot of damage in a game usually, but Pretty Prime makes it work, and the damage he gets is always meaningful. So I think his Nox play is just an example of the kind of player he is. His spacing is superb and his timing is excellent, and those are two things you really, really look for in a mid. Ataraxia, I think he's a great hunter. I don't necessarily want to say he's the best because Arkle is in the league right now, Funballer's in the league right now. I think both of those guys have just as much of a right to say they're the best, along with Ataraxia, and even to an extent Emilito. Emilito was definitely better in Season 3 than he's playing right now, just for the record, but, in the past, Emilito has been amazing. So Ataraxia is there in a pretty tight competition right now for best hunter in EU. He's also pretty nutty in that he sometimes is willing to just develop his own opinions that are totally different from other people, whether they're right or wrong, and just run with it. Sometimes it pays off well for him, sometimes it doesn't. I think the strength that Ataraxia has is that he's not afraid to look at a weird pick and go, this actually should be meta. He's one of the first guys to really run Jingwei right before she became outstanding in Season 3, and then everybody started picking her. Ataraxia was definitely one of the first guys to do that. He's also favored Chiron in the past. And then Emilzy is a very, very cerebral, shall I say, support player. Again, he's pioneered Amaterasu support, then a lot of other people started running it. He did it way before other people started doing it, though. Like, I think he ran it in one game, Season 3, and while it wasn't that effective because the meta didn't suit Amaterasu support as well at the time, he was the first guy to really make Amaterasu support a thing, and in Season 4, when she did become a lot more viable, he was probably the best player in that role, though I think he's moving away from it if his recent picks are anything to judge on. Emilzy, though, also notable as a much more public pro theory crafter than a lot of other people. He even collaborated with Duke Sloth recently, and hats off to Emilzy. The guy he puts a lot of time into thinking about the game on a very mathematical and analytical level that, a lot of people might do in the Pro League, but maybe they do it in private. He does it in public, so just a good guy all around. I think Obey takes first place. Again, they've just got the most consistent team. I mean, again, you look at every single one of these players, and while, again, I was like, Ataraxia, maybe he's not the best hunter in at the SPL, he's definitely got an argument. Emilzy, probably the best support in the EU, though. Like, Pretty Prime, best mid EU. Emilzy, best support EU. Captain Twig, I mean, he and Adapting are neck and neck. I want to give it to Adapting. This is the closest competition Adapting has ever had at his title of best jungler in the world yet. And then Maniac, I'll take him over everybody, even Deathwalker. I think he can beat Deathwalker, but it's basically between him and Deathwalker for best solo laner in the world at this point. To illustrate my point, I think we can talk about energy now, and Iraffer. People call me crazy for this, but I've spoken to SPL pros, perhaps it's worth saying former SPL pros. Iraffer is the weak link on energy. He is an average support in the SPL, and I don't care what other people have to say. I'm sticking to my guns on that. The other problem is I see that Dimmy and Emilito are slacking right now, and I sure hope that they perform, because right now it's pretty much the Adapting and Yemen show, and because of that, they placed fourth. They placed fourth because only Adapting and Yemen showed up at all last split. And I mean, Emilito, Dimmy, and Iraffer are still like relatively. They're gonna look at a team like the Poppies and just like wipe them off of their windshield like a bug, because they've been in the highest level of competition in Smite forever. But relatively speaking, to all the teams that are currently hungry and competing, they need to shape up. The three of these guys need to shape up and show we're still hungry for another championship, or they will lose their title. Right now, I'm not convinced that they can defend their title from Rival, Dignitas, or Obey. If they have to go up against any of them, I think they lose those matchups right now. But we'll see. I think there is a chance that energy turns up and places as high as second. Again, I don't see them beating Obey. Obey has everybody's number right now and can beat and will beat everyone. So energy, I'm feeling a fourth place finish for them right now. But we'll see again. They could place as low as fifth, though. Honestly, I think this team, if they slack again, they could get passed up by ENX, Elevate, even the Poppies, I think. Well, I did say that, the Poppies are coming out of the Challenger Cup, and energy, could potentially just breeze by them. The Poppies, Elevate, Eonix could all upset them and take a 2-0 off of them. And that's not even counting that Obey, Rival, and Dignitas probably will either split or 2-0, and they won't get 2-0'd by energy. Not a good outlook for them, considering the credentials of this team. Now, Elevate has made some roster changes. As you can see, Nika is now their jungler since Eonix took Fails, as they are one player away from becoming an all-UK team. Lobster, you better watch out. Then again, not really. You're playing too well. So Elevate. Elevate's been the wildcard team all year, pretty much since the start of Season 4 and to a lesser extent in the Gauntlet in Season 3. Elevate's been known to be a team that should be good, but doesn't perform. I think removing Mogao and World Edit was probably a plus for them. Though as I understand it, World Edit did retire of his own accord, just to clarify. But, getting rid of them, I think really, really improved Elevate in hindsight, because before they were kind of this, the fun team. They were fun to watch, and they were really, really troll, because they would just go in. They were super aggressive, and they were like a better version of Noble Esports back in Season 3, where it was just like, we're just gonna do our best to freaking fight you and see what happens. Nowadays, I feel like they're a lot more calculated, and that's why I think it's better that New Lisa is their mid again, is because I think she meshes better with that much more calculated and slow-paced style of play. Definitely watching the group stage LAN Season 3, New Lisa did not mesh well with Elevate's strategy at the time of just we're fighting constantly. She did not mesh well with that. I think it made her look a lot worse than she actually was. So now they've got Nika in the jungle, who has proven he's a solid mechanical player, but let's see exactly how well he does. I'm holding out, but I think Nika is going to be a positive in the jungle, honestly. He's just a really, really strong player in general, and it's like, you can say, oh, this guy's a good jungler, this guy's a good hunter, this guy's a good mid. Nika is just a solid fundamental smite player, and he can play pretty much any role he wants to at a pro level. I think if he puts in practice time, he could definitely play any role for a team if he wanted it. But he's currently jungling for Elevate, which seems like he's been going for that role for a little while at least, so let's see how he does. Let's see how he performs, and Nika, eyes are on you. If Nika performs particularly well and does well in combination with New Lisa, I feel like Elevate could go places. Heck, I could see them as high as third, competing with Energy and Rival for position. I see that in their future potentially, and I don't see them placing lower than fifth. In truth, I really think that they can tap into their potential finally and pop off. But I don't think they're really going to beat Energy or Rival. I think they beat ENX just barely, though. And it's hard saying that because I like the players on ENX a lot. Ducky, Fails, Lobster, Funballer, Big Man Tings, all steady, solid players. So when you compare the two rosters, I think either of them could finish fifth or sixth place, and that's where I'm seeing them around there. But I just think that Elevate, once they really tap in their potential, Jermaine and Dardes are outstanding. And if Nika and Nulisa can become another, dynamic duo on this team, No Numbers is going to have a lot of pressure taken off of him as the weak link of this team. Elevate could probably 2-0 Enix in that point. I really think they could. But conversely, Ducky versus No Numbers, that's a mismatch in Enix's favor. Fails versus Nika could be a mismatch in Enix's favor. We just have to see how Nika performs. That's a real big question mark, but I think advantage Enix at that point. Lobster better than New Lisa. Jermaine is better than, oh gosh, I don't even know because it's like I was saying earlier that Funballer, Ataraxia, Arkle are like the three best hunters in EU, but Jermaine is right there and can be the best, but he's inconsistent. So advantage Enix again. Dardes though, I think Dardes probably after Emilzy, Dardes is the best support in EU in my opinion. I think he is the best player on Elevate without a doubt. And I have to give the advantage over to Elevate. He's better than Big Man Tings. But actually, when I go down the list, it's like every single player on Elevate, with the exception of No Numbers, I think that's just in Ducky's favor, hands down. Nika, Nulisa, Jermaine could all theoretically be better than Fails, Lobster, Funballer, but it's a real big question because consistency is on Enix's side. So I'll say Elevate 6th, Enix 5th. We'll write this all down in greater detail in a little bit. So that's just basing off of rosters where I see the teams. Now let's go based on schedules here. So first off, I'm going to go with Optimus Gang being the lowest seeded team. They've got Dignitas, Enix, Rival in their first 2 weeks. So that's 0-6 right off the bat. And okay, that reinforces my opinion they're going to play safe. Because they're not going to beat Elevate. They're not going to beat Energy either in week 3. I mean, they've got Obey. It's like they don't have a chance to win until they play the Poppies. And note that it does not appear... Let's see, Dig, Enix, Energy, Elevate. No, excuse me, Dig, Enix, Rival, Energy, Elevate, Obey, the Poppies. Just counting this out to make sure I'm not like putting my foot in my mouth. No, they do play everybody. So they do play everybody, and I can only see them like splitting or taking a 2-0 off of the Poppies. I think they could split with Elevate, just because Elevate has a tendency to do that sort of thing, where they just split off of some random team that they're not expected to, split against. But other than that, I mean, I see them getting a potential of 2 points tops. So there you have it. I mean, Optimus, in my opinion, 4th place for sure. Let's do a little bit of editing here. Alright, there you have it. Optimus Gang, 8th. Okay. And then Poppies versus Onyx, I think they can split that. Like, these first two sets, Poppies playing Onyx and Elevate are actually favorable matchups because those are winnable games where they very well could split both these teams. Because basically, Onyx and Elevate are the teams in theory right ahead of the Poppies. Because if the Poppies are theoretically the seventh best team coming into the league, and Onyx and Elevate are fifth and sixth, then that means that those were the closest teams above the Poppies that they could potentially take games off of. And I think they can do it just judging by the way they played at relegations. Their synergy was on point. They reminded me a lot of Team Rival when they first came into the SPL with the synergy that carried them through the Challenger Cup. But then they play Obey, so that's a definite 0-2. So I think in the first 2 weeks, they could get 2 points. Um, Gosh, if they could take a 2-0 in week 1, then I think they'll place over ENX or Elevate whoever they 2-0. And then they could take 6th place. So I see that being a possibility. But then you've got Murder Week with Rival and Dig. Then you've got, what is this? Energy. They could split with Energy. So I think they're gonna probably get 2-0'd by Rival, Dig, and Obey. But if they can 2-0 one of the teams between ENX, Elevate, split with the other one, and then split with Energy, that's 5 points. And then they'll just have Optimus Gang. So I think they have as many as 7 points potentially available to them. And that's going to be my prediction is they have seven potential points. I think with that logic, I see them, and I think they will 2-0 either ENX or Elevate. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to put the Poppies at 6th. I'm going to go with it. I am going to go with it. Just going to type this in. I mean, I'm giving a lot of respect to a Spanish team that I never thought would be in the SPL, frankly. All due respect to all of you Spanish fans out there who love your team. I think that in the past, the Poppies and the idea of them being a national team was something that a lot of high level players in EU laughed at and thought was limiting them heavily because they were taking players that theoretically held them back because they were exclusively a Spanish team. But with the players that they've assembled and the team synergy they built up, they impress me. The Poppies impress me. Okay. Next on the list, let's see here. Who is 6th seed? That would be Elevate. So Elevate's got Dignitas and the Poppies. I think that's potentially 3 points for them. But I said it earlier, I think the Poppies are 2-0, are going to go 2-0, and I think they're going to 2-0 Elevate. So I'll tell you what, they split with Dig, and then they get 2-0'd by the Poppies, because that's just the Elevate thing to do, right? Then they split with Energy, get 2-0'd by Obey. But again, Elevate's just this weird team, they could split with anybody. They 2-0 Optimus Gang, and then they split with Yanix, and then they get 2-0'd by Rival. That'll put them in 7th place. Barely. I think that's 6 points? Let me count that up. So it's 1, it's 2, it's 5, 6. 6 points. Okay, yeah, that's 7th place barely. So there you go, 7th place Elevate. And I really want to emphasize that the logic I'm using here is logic where if I was betting my life savings on these teams, this is where I think they would end up. Honestly, in the case of Elevate, I want to be wrong because I love them as a team. I think they are fun to watch still. They just have a different style than the one they had in Season 3, which was also very, very fun to watch. But this Elevate team is just pleasing from a mechanical standpoint. Dardes, Jermaine, New Lisa all pop off with moments where you're just like, dang, that's a highlight reel moment right there. And that's kind of the team that they are. They're flashy, their style of play is still entertaining, and you see them in the highlight reel rather frequently. One of their players will make it in. I want to see them win more, but I just feel like their failure to tap into their potential in the past could come back to bite them. So then, with that in mind, we've got, who do we have next? That'll be Ionix. I'm sorry if I pronounce that wrong. It's just a weird name. So Ionix split with the Poppies. 2-0 Optimus Gang. Get 2-0'd by Dig. It's 3 points. They get 2-0'd by Rival. They get 2-0'd by Obey. Split with Elevate, that's 4. And then I think they split with Energy, which is 5. I still think they're going to place ahead of the Elevate because, and the Poppies, because I do believe that they're more likely to take a 2-0 off of a high-level team than either the Poppies or Elevate. Perhaps I'm actually giving the Poppies a bit too much credit in the way I've counted up their points. It's just weird. Ionix is similar to Elevate in that I feel like they could be really good, and they've got the players that say on paper they could be really good, but I just feel like past matchups as of last split suggest to me maybe not. But then again, this is a better roster than we've seen before, so I'll give them the benefit of a doubt and say yes, they can 2-0 the Poppies, which would put them in 5th place. And then from here, it gets pretty easy in my opinion. You've got Energy, Rival, Dignitas, Obey in that order, pretty much in line with the Masters placement. Again, if I'm betting my life savings, man, I am betting that, without a doubt, we are going to see the same order we saw at the Masters LAN. But that could change again. Energy could pop off, Rival could pop off, or Dig could maintain their number 2 spot, or Obey could slip. We'll see. Any of those things could happen. Gotta get the undercase E, lowercase e. Team Dignitas. And Obey Alliance. So there you have it, guys. This is my EU SPL placements episode. And I think that I'm gonna stick with this. In truth, I think the Poppies are also a fun team to watch, so I'm giving them a lot of credit when I put them in 6th place. I do want to say that, but again, it's just the Elevate thing to do, to drop games in a weird way and find themselves in 7th place. I think the outlook going into the Gauntlet, however, is that, again, I don't think Energy comes out on top in the Gauntlet LAN. Ideally, if you're Energy, you want to make it to Valencia. You want to be top 2, and then Energy setting themselves up for success. If they don't make it top 2, I don't think they make a run in the Gauntlet, just because that does not seem how Energy is built to play. They don't like playing from a lower seed. I know that's all strange sounding, but that's the way they have played this season. That's what their track record suggests. I think that your potential Gauntlet runner is probably going to consist of Ionix, Elevate, or the Poppies in that order. I mean, Ionix Rival is my bet for the Gauntlet Finals in EU. And I think that it'll end up being that if we have the same format in terms of how teams get into Valencia as they had for the Smite Masters LAN at Hi-Rez Studios. We will see 2 EU teams enter, and my predictions would be Rival and ENX to go to Masters LAN after Obey and Dig. So, with all that stated, let me know what you thought of the podcast. Please leave a comment. And again, if you really, really like my work, please check out the description below. If you've got feedback, positive or negative, I don't care. I'll take negative feedback and learn from it. Find out what you're referring to. I mean, I'm here because I enjoy what I do. It's a fun hobby. So anything you have to say is valued. I don't really care what it is. Just say it to me, please. I appreciate that. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. This is your man, Will the Thrill here. And I thank you so much for your time. Y'all have a wonderful day or night. Whatever time of day it is for you, enjoy it. And look out for my brief little Challenger Cup short coming to you soon. Y'all have a good night, folks. Take care, and bye-bye.